I gotta be fairly quick about this intro, kids, because my voice is hanging in tatters. But I am delighted to tell you that I have as a guest on the show this week, the great and powerful Rakefet Abergel. You will recall Rakefet. She is a Hollywood-based, award-winning actor, screenwriter, director. Her short films, Jackson Love and Boo, have just torn up the festival circuit over the past few years. She is, I think, the first non-band member of mine to become a three-timer on the program, so cheers to Rakefet for that. She is back to talk to us this time because she's working on her new film, and it's an important film, and it's a heavy film. So this is an intro and a slight content warning, okay? Rakefet's new film, very deeply personal. It's about losing a pregnancy. It is based on her own experience and the experiences of many, many, many people who have reached out to her since that happened. So if this is something very sensitive for you, you might not want to take in this episode. But if you are interested in the power that art has to process these emotions and to open dialogue about some of these things that need talking about, if you are interested in hearing how a person can take tragedy and take grief and create from it something that is, golden. It's really, really vital and important to be able to use this kind of alchemy to work through our feelings, and through that process, open up opportunities for other people to process their feelings as well. Rakefet is doing that with her new film called Still, and it's just a really potent and powerful interview about this process and about how filmmaking works and about how she and, by extension, other people can use art to process their pain. It's a really, really great episode. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll get to it on the other side. Hello, you're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. Rakefet Abergel, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
We've just observed the traditional 10 seconds of silence, which is really awkward and kind of funny when you're just looking at somebody on the screen.
It's like room tone when we do production. We have to get room tone. So everyone just stands around staring at each other, not breathing.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm getting room tone.
Yeah.
So that I can edit room tone out of the sound later.
There you go.
Because we're very high tech around here. So, how's it going?
Good. Pretty good. I'm in the middle of, stuff. So it's a little stressful at the moment, but good.
So this morning, I watched a Rakefet Abergel deep cut.
What did you watch?
This morning I watched your appearance on the 15th season of ER.
Oh man, that is a I didn't even know what season it was.
It was season 15.
It was basically the end of the show. Like when I was on, I think it was like almost over.
I think that was the last season, and which means I knew you before I knew you, because I'm sure I watched that episode when it ran.
That was a fun show to be on. I was actually on it as an extra a few years before, so it was cool to come back and have a part after being like an extra. When George Clooney was on it, I was a background. Okay,
so most of us lay people, the mechanics of television is a complete mystery. So how do you wind up being an extra on ER? And then how does a person wind up with an actual speaking part on the program? How does this happen?
How does it happen? So many things have to happen. And a lot of it is just like luck. But the way it's pretty easy to become an extra in LA. You just sign up with one of the extras casting agencies. Like Central Casting is the biggest one, and there's many others. You sign up, they take pictures, you fill out like a profile, and then basically they're like, well, I don't know how it works now. I know how it works back in the day. Back in the day, you had to call in to this like voicemail, and all the different extras casting directors would leave like casting notices on the voicemail, and you had to like press a number and then like submit yourself with your social security number. Now I'm sure it all happens online somehow, and you're getting an email and you're submitting yourself like, through some website. I'm sure it's just like way easier now. So I think they were looking for, regular looking people to sit in the ER, whatever. And I remember it because I was a huge fan of the show, and they had me laying on a gurney, like in the background of like one of the scenes. Like I was in one of the hospital rooms, like just a body in a bed, like you were never going to see me. And George Clooney came around and was just kind of saying hello to everybody. He was like really nice, sweet guy. And I was like in love with him, of course. And it was like the height of George Clooney, like fandom. And he came over to me with this clipboard, like in character as the doctor. And he was like, so what brought you in here today? Ha ha, whatever. And I was like, I think I'm having a heart attack. Like full on, like such a weirdo. And he laughed, and I was like, you're so cute. Well, like I full on just told him like I couldn't even like talk. I was just giggling and blushing, and then they started the scene, and they did it for so long that I fell asleep in the background. And it was the most comfortable job I ever had. I just had to like lay there on this bed for like hours. It was amazing. Usually when you're an extra, you're in some weird position or you have to like walk back and forth. But this was like, just lay in the bed. And so at some point, I think I was snoring, and the director's like kind of like woke me up, like, you're snoring. I was like, oh. And he's like, honestly, you can sleep. Just try not to snore. And I was like, I will do my best.
Like you can control that. Yeah.
Right. It's like, okay, so don't sleep is what you're saying. And then to get the part, this was years later, I think my first big thing was on My Name is Earl, because I was an extra on My Name is Earl. And then they brought me back for a line because they really liked me when I was an extra. Like I showed them that I was, professional and nice to be around and whatever. So they had me audition for a line, and they brought me back to do a line. And then ER was shortly after that. I auditioned for it, and I had to be the lady who punched out a parking meter attendant because he gave her a ticket, and she's pregnant, and how dare he? What am I supposed to do? Park around the corner? Whatever, I think is the line or something like that.
So you actually had to audition for that role? Oh,
yeah, you have to any role where there's speaking words, you're going to audition, unless you're George Clooney. I'm sure he doesn't audition anymore.
So would you have like your agent call you up and say this they're auditioning this part? Do you want to go? How did that go?
Either I saw the breakdown or they saw the break. I can't remember who. I think I was with Buckwald then. I don't know. So someone saw the breakdown for like, angry 20-something pregnant, blah, 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 blah. They submitted me, and I was probably one of, 100 people they brought in at least. And you just do the scene with the casting director, and then sometimes there's a callback, but in this case, I have no recollection. I do not remember. If there's a callback, you do it again in front of the producers, and the writer and the showrunner and everything. And then sometimes they'll just show a tape. If it's a small part, they don't bring everybody into the room for that. And then you go and do it. And it was just so weird to be like in the hospital, which was like a set, obviously, but I've been watching that show for 15 years at that point. So it was kind of cool.
To me, it's, I don't know, to you, maybe it's just, just TV, but this whole process to me is completely foreign. So anybody who comes onto that show, there was X number of people who had speaking parts in that episode who are not regular cast members. They've all auditioned for that. And like, how far in advance are you reading for that?
Probably a couple weeks before.
All right. So you get the part, and what's the day like? Like, when do you show up? How does this go?
So you get they call you and they're like, first, sometimes they'll say we put a pin in you, which means they're holding you while they figure out who they really want. And then they'll call to either release the pin, like meaning you didn't get the part, or book you. So then once you're booked, usually a few days later, you get contacted by the costume designer and you go in for a wardrobe fitting. So you go to the set for a wardrobe fitting and they try on different stuff. And then they send pictures to the director to be like, which one do you want her to wear? What do you want her to look like? Blah, blah, blah. And then you come back on the day and your clothes that have been picked out by the director are laying in your trailer and you'd be like, okay, I guess that's what they chose. And you put it on, you go to hair and makeup, you go to set, you hope you know your lines. You try not to get intimidated by like people that you watch on TV all the time and like that are just like right there in front of you, just being people. And I mean, I was starstruck every single time I worked, no matter what. I just always was. In fact, I preferred to work on shows I didn't watch because it made me a whole lot less nervous. Like when I did Shameless, I was a huge fan of the show and I was a nervous wreck. I was like, I just cannot believe I'm like in this world that I like watch and now I'm like in it and now I'm like in the house that they like live in, but it's a set.
Wild.
It's just crazy. And it all seems weird to me now because it's been probably 5 or 6 years since I've worked on anything like that wasn't my own or like a small indie thing. So it seems like so far away right now, but I'm starting to get back into it. So
are you?
Which I'm wondering if I should or I shouldn't, but at the moment I am. I may just do like an about face U-turn and be like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to my writing and directing.
Why the reservation about that?
I love acting. I hate the business of acting. I hate the auditioning. I hate the headshots. I hate, all the wardrobe fittings and I'm not a fan of the whole thing. Also, once you kind of run your own productions and write and direct and produce, it's really hard to go back to being kind of like, you don't have any power. You don't have any, you just don't have any say. You don't have any, real input. And it's weird, everyone's like, if you had to choose between being a director and an actor, why wouldn't you choose director? Because director is the one that has the power and is and the actor is always like, cast me, like me, put me in something, and it's a very kind of desperate position to be in. So I don't miss that desperate feeling of being an actor. So that's my reservation, I guess.
Yeah, but you have now created the best of both worlds.
I'm working on it, although you can't really live in all of the worlds as much as I want to. I'm finding more and more that it's very hard to do all of those things consistently. What happens is I'll start to do one thing and the other thing will fall off, and then I'll start to do the other thing and the other thing will fall off, because to do any of the jobs in this industry, you need to put your everything into it. And if you're splitting your time and your energy and your whatever into different things, it just makes it really difficult and sometimes impossible.
Music is much the same.
I'm sure it is. Oh, I'm sure. Any performance industry, for sure. Yeah,
it's like if you're going to be 100% good at anything, you've got to kind of give 100% to it, or be successful at least at it. I don't know what it's like. If you don't appear on TV for a few years, are you forgotten? Does it matter? It's completely foreign to me. I have no idea.
To some degree, yeah, because like I haven't really, I mean, I started auditioning recently in the last couple of months, but there are new casting directors that I've never met before now.
Sure.
It's been 5 or 6 years. A lot of the casting assistants either became casting directors or just left the business. The older casting directors left the business or maybe aren't working anymore. Now everything is self-tape, and don't even get me started on that, and how you can't even make a connection with a casting office now because you never see them. And that was a big part of the thing that I did like about auditioning, was going in and seeing the casting director and being like, hello again, and good to see you, and how's it going, and what's new. And, now you have, that just doesn't happen until you get maybe a lot further along, and then maybe they'll bring like a few people in. They can see more people, but also that's an upside, but it's also a downside, right? So they're going to see more people for the role, so you might get seen, but also they're going to see more people for the role. So now the pool is a lot larger to choose from, which makes the chances a lot less. But that's kind of why I started to audition again and go back into it, because I said, well, if I'm ever going to do this again, I really can't let more than 5 years pass, because my credits are kind of getting old. You know what I mean? Like even my most recent stuff is old. And it makes it look like you're a has-been, like you don't do this anymore. Like you used to do it, but now you don't do it. And I've been acting consistently throughout, but mostly in my own projects or in small kind of indie things, because I'm in that world right now. And which is fine. I have no problem with that. It's just getting back into like the network stuff is hard.
I can imagine it is.
Yeah, it's kind of like starting over. It almost feels like starting over. Like, even though I have a lot of credits and, but there's a lot of casting people that don't know me, that have never read me, that have never met me. There's a lot of producers that don't know me, like there was a level of like people knowing who I was a few years ago within the industry.
Sure.
And now probably a lot less. And now I'm seen more as a director, which is great, but not at all whatever my goal was. It was not my goal. But now I'm getting offered directing opportunities, which is amazing. But I've always just wanted to be offered acting opportunities. That's all I ever really wanted.
Interesting. At what point do you look at that and say, well, life is telling me to be a director? Or is it just, in my heart of hearts, that's just not where I'm at?
Yeah. I've had very successful people in the industry, veterans of the industry, tell me, like, you need to pick. You can't be all the things. You just need to pick, because people don't know what to see you as. So they don't know if they should see you as an actor or see you as a director or see you as a writer. I just refuse to do it. I refuse to pick, because I really love doing all of those things. I guess if there was a hierarchy, acting would be number one. Directing probably, I don't know. There's parts of directing I hate and parts of it I love. And writing, I think directing and writing are both two. Yeah, I don't know. I guess at some point you just kind of take the opportunities that are presented to you, and you just start moving with them. And if I ended up being some kind of successful director, I wouldn't be like, oh man, I really messed up. Like, oh, my life sucks. I'd be like, okay, well, I'm a really successful director. That's great. And then I'll just put myself in my own stuff.
That's the thing, right? Like you can, there's a video making the rounds of Jason Alexander talking about how you have to create the role you want, which is exactly what you've done, and it's like,
it's the whole reason I'm doing any of this is because I was doing a lot of comedy and I wasn't getting a lot of the dramatic stuff I wanted to do. And they just didn't see me that way. They just kind of boxed me in, especially because I did stand up and I'm overweight, so I'm funny. It's like they have to go together. And so I wrote Jax just to give myself something like juicy to do, like what I really wanted to do. And then Boo, of course, also. And this is even more. This is something, my new one is a little something that I'm actually like terrified to act in, but
Well, I mean, we are here really, despite the preamble, and I'm sorry that I put you down the ER rabbit hole.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
But it was just so fun to see that. We're here to talk about still.
Yes,
And
still.
I think the only fair and reasonable thing for me to do is to simply let you do that. So tell, because this is difficult stuff. So tell us about still.
Sure. Okay. This is my first interview about this, so I don't have like a set thing yet or anything, but I'll just kind of talk from the heart, which is what this is about.
Sure.
I got pregnant about a year and a half ago. It was somewhat of an accident, you could say. Although I thought of it as a very happy accident, and I was just really happy about it. Of course, I was nervous and scared, and it was like out of nowhere and a little bit frightening. But I was happy. And then I ended up having a miscarriage, and which is incredibly common. I found out after the fact. It happens to 1 in 4 pregnancies, so 25% of the time, and that's under 40 years old, and I was over 40. Once you're over 35, 40, it goes down, it goes up to like 70% of pregnancies. I mean, like it just like raises way higher. But for me, it was the only time I had ever been pregnant in my life. It was the only time that I even had this opportunity to think that I was going to have this different life that I was hoping to have. And I've always wanted to be a mother. So it was all just very sad and tragic for me. And it felt like maybe it was my last chance because I'm 43 now. I was 42 at the time. And I thought maybe this is it. This is it, you know? So it was really hard for me. For many months, I was just very despondent and depressed about it, of course, especially coming out of COVID and everything. I mean, it just, like, my mental health took a real hit during COVID and then after this miscarriage. And then one day I just decided I'm going to write about it. I had to write about it. And I felt like I posted about it on Facebook and on different social media, and people were reaching out to me privately to tell me it had happened to them, or it had happened to them multiple times, or they had a stillbirth, or their baby died of SIDS. Like, I mean, I was getting all of this, like, people were just telling me all of their stories. Some of them had never told anybody. Like I was the first person they were even telling. Like, this happened to them in 1986, and they've never told anybody. I mean, like, stuff like that.
Wow.
And it just blew me away that, like, for me, when it happened, to post about it seemed very natural to me. I was like, I need my community. I need people to know that I'm hurting. I need people to know that he existed, that my baby, like, you know, that any of this even happened, because it started to feel like it not real, because it had happened so quickly. I lost the baby about 9 weeks in. So I only knew for a couple of weeks. And it started to feel like I had made it up almost, like I had dreamt it, like this whole thing just didn't happen. And so I realized that even though it was kind of easy for me to talk about, it was very hard for many people to talk about. And even more so, it seemed hard for people to even hear me talking about it. Like, even people who weren't affected by it were so uncomfortable around the subject that it, like, bothered them that I was talking about it.
Why do you think that is?
I think it got this real taboo thing to it. I don't know why. Maybe just anything with women's health tends to be taboo. We're not allowed to talk about periods. We're not allowed to talk about like things that happen naturally that are just like natural, you know, things. I mean, sex is taboo in this country. Everything's taboo around anything having to do with sex. And pregnancy and all that stuff. And I mean, I learned things about pregnancy that I was never taught, never exposed to, like horrible things that happen, that, you know, which contributed to my anxiety while I was pregnant. But I was just like, oh my God, that could happen, and this could happen, and that could happen. I'm like, how do we even have people in the world? Like, right. I can't even imagine, how do people do this every day? You know, I was pregnant for 8 or 9 weeks, and I got 4,000 blood tests, you know what I mean? Like, and I wasn't even like pregnant yet, you know? So it just seems to be a subject that people are uncomfortable around, maybe because it's also having to do with death and grieving, which is another taboo, uncomfortable subject for many people. So it's just like a perfect storm of uncomfortableness, I think. And some people, I think some women feel like maybe they did something wrong or they're going to be judged.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why did you eat sushi, or why did you go to the gym, or why did you were too anxious, or you were too nervous, or you didn't, whatever it is, you didn't take the vitamins, or, you know, whatever. So I think people feel like they're going to be judged, or maybe they're judging themselves. And I just decided I can't be in a world like that. So
yeah.
I wanted to try to change that and make people have these conversations and bring the subject up. Because that's what I do best, is make people uncomfortable. If you ask my parents, my whole family would agree. I'm all about bringing up things that like just nudge at people, because I think it's important, and I don't really care if it makes you uncomfortable. It doesn't really bother me if it does. Like, if you don't like it, don't watch, don't read it. But so I wrote this short, and the whole idea around the short was it kind of is a metaphor for my feelings about it. So it's not my story. It's not like what happened to me exactly. It's more about the feelings that I had around it, where it's like, you know, I had this future as a mom that I was looking forward to, and that was going to be, and my whole life was going to change, and my world was going to change. And then one day it's just taken away from you. And you have to like realize that none of that stuff that you had been imagining is going to happen. And then how do you deal with the fact that it's gone? And then how do you deal with the fact that people who are maybe well-meaning say things that actually make it a whole lot worse? And it's coming from a lack of understanding usually. Like, oh, at least it was early, or, oh, it's God's will, or, oh, you can try again, or, oh, and I thought, you know, if I lost my child, like in a park, if I like lost my baby, nobody would come up to me and be like, well, you can get another one.
Yeah, it was God's will.
You can try again. You'd be like, no, listen, I lost my kid.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me to try again, or, oh, it's God's will, it was meant to be. Oh, so okay, great. You know, so that's kind of what the short is about. It's about a woman who's my age, and she finds a baby in the forest, miraculously. And she just kind of comes upon this baby and starts to take care of it and mother it. And then she meets another mother, and this mother, you know, starts kind of saying to her these things that I'm talking about, like these kind of well-meaning, the baby disappears, and this mother comes up and starts saying like, it's okay, you can try again, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, like, my baby was just here. Like, now it's not. Like, where did it go? And it triggers the memory of what actually happened to her. So, which is that she had a stillbirth. And that she lost the baby at like 6 months, which was not my story again. But, so I was hoping that the film will help people who have experienced it feel seen. Like, I get it, I understand you, and I know how it feels. And I want to try to make it to visualize for other people who have not experienced it what it feels like, and to maybe think about it from our perspective, and like think about what you're saying, and think about how it's coming across. And that if it was a real live baby that had already been born that was suddenly gone, you just would never say any of this stuff. And to somebody who's pregnant and loses a child, or even a baby that's been born and then loses it early on, like, it's not just the baby that's gone, it's the entire future that you envisioned with this child, and who you were going to be and who they were going to be, and all of it's just gone. So, and for some people, the story is different. You know, maybe they can try again. They have a partner, they can try again, or they're going to do IVF again and take a mortgage out on their house, or
right.
they're going to, you know, adopt or whatever. But for me, I don't have a partner. I'm 43 years old. I don't make a lot of money. I can't afford IVF. I really can't afford to do even artificial insemination. It's very expensive. Even adoption, which I've considered, is like ridiculously expensive and crazy because there's all these children that need places to go and you can't get to them without money, which is just insane to me. So for me, it felt like very final. It just felt like this was it. This was the chance. And now it just may not ever get to be ever again. So people saying to me, like, you can try again. So that really upset me because I was like, no, I really can't. I don't know that I can. So anyway, so that's kind of what it's about. I really hope my goal with it is to have people who've experienced it feel understood and seen and heard. And from the people that have read the script that have experienced a child or pregnancy loss, they say that it does make them feel seen and heard and like that I get it and that I'm showing to other people how they feel, which is important to them. And I think people who haven't experienced it, who've read it, like realize the enormity of it, because even though it's common, that doesn't make it any easier or better. Just because it happens all the time does not change the pain or the grieving or any of it.
Was the writing difficult? Did the script come easily to you?
The script actually came so easy. I had this vision of a woman finding a baby in the forest. That was all. That's like where it started from. I was like, what if I was just like angrily walking along, grieving my child, and I was so lucky to come across just a baby just like given to me from the gods, like
God's will. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, what would I do if I just found a baby? I would be like, I would pick that baby up and I would make that baby my baby and I would just love it and care for it and just mother it. And then it kind of turned into like this kind of a metaphor thing. And so the first draft came really easy, and then I've been kind of rewriting to kind of make it a little more clear because a lot of it was more in my head than on the page in the beginning. And I felt so much better afterwards. Like it really made me feel better because I felt like I figured out a way to tell people and show people how I feel instead of like just talking to them about it. I was like, how can I visually impress upon people the feelings that come along with all of this, the excited, happy feelings, the not happy feelings. She kind of has this nightmare when she meets this mother and it turns into this like nightmare. And that's kind of how it felt to me. I felt like I was in this dream and then it just turned into a nightmare. Like it just kind of morphed into this nightmarish thing. And it took something that I found so beautiful and happy and made it awful. So that's kind of what the movie's going to be about. It's not a happy movie. It's a very sad movie. My mom literally has read it I don't know how many times and cries every time. I'm like, Mom, you don't have to cry every time, like the first couple of times. She's like, but for her, of course, she's crying for me.
Of course.
And the mother in this project, in the film, is not a very understanding mother, but I just want to be clear that my mother was not like that. My mother and father were incredibly supportive the entire time, both before and after. They were helping me they were going to try to buy a house so that I could move and like have room for like the baby. Wow. And we were going to open houses. I mean, like I had a whole future that I thought was going to happen. And then it just was gone, like overnight. And, not to get too much into, like, I won't get too detailed, but I don't know if people realize that even at 8 or 9 weeks, you go into labor. Like, you have contractions.
Okay.
Like, because your body is trying to expel this thing that's not well. I was in the hospital with contractions, like actual, like, labor, like as if I was giving birth contractions, screaming, painful contractions. And nobody talks about that either. Like I've heard about miscarriages, but like nobody ever mentioned to me like, oh, hey, you go into labor. So it's like you have all of the pain and then nothing to show for it at the end. And that's early. I can't even imagine somebody who's carrying a baby that, is already been in there for 6 months or something, and they have to literally give birth. I mean, like, push it out or have a C-section or something. I've heard horror stories about women who they were told their baby didn't have a heartbeat, and then like they couldn't schedule the surgery for like a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. So they're like carrying around, they feel like they're like a grave site for their baby. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. And so me making horror movies, I was like, there's nothing more horrifying than this. This is one of the most horrifying things I can think of. And it's real. And it's not vampires. And it's not serial killers. And it's just like nature. And nature can be the most horrific of all, because it's like, it's just really bad. So I learned a lot about pregnancy and miscarriages and stuff, but I also learned a lot about myself, and I learned about what I'm capable of. And, I'm very scared of needles, but I was happily giving them my arm to do all these blood tests, because I was like, it's for the baby. It's for the baby. I did acupuncture. It's for the baby. It's for the baby. Like I was willing to do things that I myself am incredibly afraid of for this baby. And I got a little taste of what it must be like to be a mother or a parent and want to just do anything for your kid, like no matter what, even at your own like peril. And at least I know about myself, because I always wondered, would I be a parent that could put aside my needs and wants for the child? Because I think that's the only good kind of parent. And I was worried I wouldn't be, because I've been single and alone for a long time. I'm like, maybe I'm really selfish. Maybe I'm just like, nope, this is my life. Get out of, deal with it. But I know that I stepped up and I did what I had to do. And I I stopped everything. I stopped caffeine, all the things I needed to do. I did it. And there was a little bit of, maybe I shouldn't have gone to the gym that day. Maybe I shouldn't have this. Maybe I was too anxious. Maybe I was too nervous. Maybe, who knows? But honestly, it just happens.
You were, I'm sure, no more nervous and probably less nervous than everybody else.
Right. I was like, I kept saying to myself, like, people do this every day. Like in some countries, they just squatting over a hole. Like they're not even like in a hospital. Like they're giving birth themselves and like pulling the baby out of their body. I was like, I can do this.
Yeah. Sometimes it just does not go that way. There's no blame for it. It's just nature. As you said, nature can be horrendous. Nature
can be, for sure. And the line that triggers her realization in the movie that something really bad happened to her and that this is not reality that she's in with this baby is the mother saying to her, maybe you're not good enough to be a mother. And that was something I told myself when I, like, not knowingly, but like in my head, I could hear myself telling myself, like, maybe God knows, or maybe the universe knows that you're just not good enough to be a mother. Like, you shouldn't be a mother. And so we're going to take it away from you, which of course, now that I'm thinking clearly and not in like a grieving place, I don't believe. But I did for a minute. I really did.
This is why it's so important for people who have this experience to share this experience, because you put this on film and then you help whoever's going through this understand that these are thoughts that everybody has and they're not true. Right. Art has such a unique ability to provoke this kind of dialogue. And I go back to, this is the second time recently that this subject has come up on my show. So a little while back, I had one of my favorite singer-songwriters, Jackie Neville, was on the show, and she also had a miscarriage a couple years ago, and she's a songwriter, and so she wrote a song about it on her new album. It's called River.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
I'll send it to you.
Look it up. Okay.
Incidentally, what you hear on her recording is one take in the studio. Her and a piano. She's like, that's it. I can't do it again.
Wow.
You know,
That's
you get what you
amazing.
get. I can't do it. Like, it's just too much. And music has such an ability to convey an emotion and release an emotion. And here you have film, which works differently. But again, it's so vital to have this conversation. And so what you're doing is taking this awful stuff and processing it this way, but it can become such a gift to the people who see it, right?
That is definitely my goal. I mean, even someone told me Taylor Swift wrote a song about her miscarriage also. And every time I hear it, I just bawl. Like,
Yeah.
it's called Bigger Than the Whole Sky or something. And with music especially, like, there's so many songs that elicit emotions from me,
Sure.
different emotions. Music is so special that way, I think, and it's immediate. You can just like put it on wherever you are and you can have that feeling. I use it in my acting all the time. Like, if I want to feel a certain way, I listen to music.
Mm.
So, it is important. And, some people are calling me brave, and I'm like, I don't think it's brave. I just think it's necessary. I just think it's, the reason I don't think it's brave is because it's not hard for me. It's not hard for me to talk about it.
Hmm.
It's hard for me in the sense that I'm sad, but it's not difficult for me to be open about my feelings. I've always been very open about my feelings. I post stuff on Facebook, not always happy stuff, because I'm real. I'm just real. I'll say, like, I'm having a shitty day, or I feel depressed, or I feel whatever. Like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm not trying to, like, present this perfect life, because none of us are having a perfect life. And I don't want to present myself that way. I think there's so much more power in saying, I'm hurting. If you're hurting and you see me hurting, maybe you'll realize you're not hurting alone.
Right.
Maybe you'll realize that not just you feel this way or think this way or whatever. And there is power in people coming together and saying, like, we all say this stuff to ourselves. I mean, every woman I know that has told me about a miscarriage has said something along the lines of feeling like they weren't good enough or they did something wrong. Even the word miscarriage
Right.
makes it sound like you failed. Like,
Right.
you failed at carrying the baby, which is why I try to use the word pregnancy loss more, because that's less on me and less on the person. But miscarriage is a well-known term, so it's a lot easier to use to get, the point across quickly. But yeah, even the term makes it sound like you have failed.
Yeah, you're
like,
right.
your body failed. It didn't carry it correctly. Which is crazy, because it's like, it puts a lot of pressure on the parent, on the mother, to feel like she did something wrong. I mean, even when I went in to have the doctor after the miscarriage, they wanted to check to make sure everything was out. And if not, they were going to have to do basically an abortion, a D&C, to, like, get everything out, which I was terrified. I was hoping that wasn't going to be something that was necessary for me. And I guess because it was early enough, it wasn't. But what he said to me, and this is not my regular doctor, thank God, but he, like, checked everything with an ultrasound, and he goes, yep, you're empty.
Oh, good.
And I was like, why would you even, like, phrase it that way? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you? Which is why I tend to have not male gynecologists, because I don't feel like they fully understand what it's like to be a woman, no matter how knowledgeable they are. But it was like a last minute thing, emergency. So it ended up being this other doctor. But, like, who says, oh yeah, you're all empty? It's just like, yes, that's how I feel. Thank you for verifying that is in fact true.
Yeah. Bedside manner at its finest, huh?
Yeah, it just, it was unfortunate. It was like, where's my doctor? I want my doctor.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure even worse things happen. I've heard so many horrible stories, but, so yeah, I really hope I hope this helps people feel seen, and I hope it explains to people who don't know anything about it, or maybe haven't experienced it, or don't know anyone who's experienced it, just understand the feelings around it a little bit more, and be just a little more careful about what they say, because a lot of it is very well-meaning. Like, it's people trying to help,
Sure.
and I don't think it's coming from a bad place, and the intentions are not malicious. But sometimes ends up being the wrong thing to say.
Oh, I get it 100%.
And actually, my mother, my real mother, who was so supportive and sweet and loving and kind to me during this whole time, has really wanted to play my mom in the movie.
And she is.
And she is.
Ha!
It's a voicemail only. It's like a voiceover role, which is why I'm letting her do it. And she's not an actor, but I made her audition. I was like, let me hear the lines. And she's like, you're going to make me. I said, yes, I want to hear the lines.
Yes, I am.
And she did it, and it elicited such real feelings from me, like, and that I thought, oh, we have to do this because, you know, although she doesn't feel this way about my pregnancy, like, oh, you have to move on, get over it, blah, blah, blah. She does feel that way about other things in my life, like boyfriends and all sorts of, you know, unhealthy things that I've involved myself in, or people I've involved myself with. And so she's like, that's what I'm using to do my lines. And I said, oh, I know, I've heard that tone before and it makes me angry. And which is perfect because that's exactly what this voicemail in the movie is supposed to elicit in the character.
Great.
So I'm excited to do that. And she is like so excited about it. And that makes me happy that I'm making her happy. And it's something she really wants to do. And like, my parents deserve every good thing in the world. They are the absolute best parents ever. I cannot imagine having any other parents. I would kill to have these parents again and again and again. Like, they're the best parents.
Oh, that's great.
I'm very lucky. Very lucky. Yeah.
So you are now fundraising for the filming.
Yes,
tell us about that.
We started our Seed and Spark campaign, which is like Indiegogo or Kickstarter, but more for filmmakers. It's also a female-owned company, which I like about it. They also don't take platform fees, which is really nice of them, so that saves us some money. We started it a few days ago. I think we're at $7,000-ish this morning was the last thing I saw, and we're trying to get to 18 minimum. You would think that's a lot for a short, and to some people it is, but it's really not. Like, this is paying people minimally, very minimally. Some people are not even getting paid. And I'm not getting paid a cent to direct, produce, act in it, nothing. I didn't even include it in the budget. It's not even like it's never gonna happen. So we need 18 minimum, and 30 would be better because, you know, once you hit the festival circuit, you've marketing and film festival submissions and traveling and
sure.
Anyway, which usually just ends up coming off my credit cards in the end. But I try to build it into the budget as much as I can. So we're trying to raise money. We have a lot of different incentives. One of them that I'm really excited about is I made a DVD I will be producing a DVD called Love Scars that will have all three of my films on it. So it'll have Jack's Boo and Still, and behind the scenes videos, teasers, trailers, special features, interviews, stuff like that. I worked really hard on designing the cover so we could have that visual to show people. And of course, we can't produce the DVD until this film is made because it has to go on the DVD. But anyone who donates or pledges $125 or more will get that. We may do another run of it later on, maybe to help with festival submissions too, and it may be slightly cheaper then. But for now, in order to justify all the shipping and everything, I needed it to be at a certain level.
Sure.
And there's like set visits. You can come to the set and eat dinner with us while we're shooting one day. We're going to have, you can meet with me. There's filmmaking consultations. There's acting lessons. There's social media shout outs and personalized videos. And we're going to also we have a real live baby that's going to be in the movie, which was very exciting.
Yeah.
Yes. My producer's best friend just had a baby like a month and a half ago. So by the time we shoot with him, he'll be like 3 or 4 months old. And she's very excited to put him in the movie. And of course, we're going to use him very minimally just for like a few shots here and there. And then we have like a doll that we're using. But the doll will be up for grabs as an incentive as well. So you could get a set used, real life, probably reborn baby doll Reborn's the name of the company. Yeah, my mom's is going to be offering a Shabbat dinner for 2 that she will deliver to your house. I'm telling you, this is a family run business here. She's also doing the catering for our shoot. She's done it for both of my films so far. She loves feeding people. My mom just loves to feed people. And I need her to feed people because it makes the crew very happy to have real food and not like Little Caesars and salad.
I'm sure.
So yeah. And, there's a teaser up there. There's a pitch video with my story, but you heard it here anyway. And, we're going to shoot Memorial Day weekend. And, yeah.
My audience is largely Canadian. When is Memorial Day weekend?
Oh, right. Sorry. Memorial Day weekend is the last weekend of May. It's okay. Most Americans don't know when it is either.
Well, see, around here, that would be known as May 2-4 weekend.
There you go. May 2-4 weekend.
Ostensibly the dearly departed Queen's birthday. It might even be Queen Victoria. I'm not even sure what Queen, but...
one of them.
It's May 2-4 weekend, which means you get a 2-4. I don't know if they have 2-4s in the States or not, but that's
what
20.
Is a 2-4?
That's a case of 24 beers. And then you go off camping and probably it snows on you, and it's May 2-4 weekend. So that's Memorial Day down there.
All right, we're going to be shooting on May 2-4 weekend, and I don't think anyone's going to be having beer, but
depends on what your mom brings.
Will be. Not on my set, hopefully.
So where can people follow along with all? I will put the link to the fundraiser with the show notes, etc., and I'll broadcast it around. But where can they keep track of all this?
So there is a Facebook page for Still. If you go to facebook.com/Still a Short Film, also Cyclamen Films on Facebook or Rakefet Abergel on Facebook. I'm posting it on so many different pages, so you'll see it everywhere. Anything having to do with me, it'll be there. I think it's sometimes some of them are on the Boo page, some are on the Jax page. On Instagram, it's @Cyclamen Films, and you can go to cyclamenfilms.com. I'm still updating the site, but there's some info there. And you can watch my other stuff that's already out. And yeah, that's what's happening.
Well, good luck with all of this. I know this is heavy, and it's wonderful that you can use this experience to create a piece of art and to hopefully help a lot of other people. That's very, that's the best you can do with this, right?
Yeah. Oh, also, I totally forgot to mention, I'm going to be donating whatever our total is that we raise. 5% of that, or 5%, the amount of 5% of that, I'm going to be donating to pregnancy and child loss organizations.
Wonderful.
And a lot of them are listed on the campaign. So I'm going to take 5% of that money and kind of divvy it out to different organizations that I found in my research that help women and families with these kinds of losses. So I hope that I'm also giving back, and as much as I'm taking. Because I'm taking, but I'm also giving back. I want to give back. That's the whole goal.
No, that's great. Good for you. And I'm very sorry that this happened, but I'm also very impressed with how you're dealing with it and what you're doing with it. That's great.
I just felt like it was going to be, I don't want it to be for nothing.
Yeah.
I want it to have happened for a reason. And I know there was a reason, and maybe this is the reason. And honestly, everything up till now has happened almost too easily. Like,
don't say that.
Like, which never happens with my films. So and this may sound woo-woo or crazy, but I honestly feel like Max Jacob, which is the name I gave my baby that was not born, is helping me somehow. I feel like he's up there championing this film and like wanting it to be out there. And I don't know, but I feel like there's a hand in it that I don't understand, because things have worked out in the weirdest of most ways.
That's cool.
And so and that has never happened with my films. Like, if anything, it's the opposite. Usually, like, everything that can go wrong does. But with this one, like, crazy things out of nowhere happen. Like getting this baby, like, how? The location was easy. How? I don't know. Things like that. Just so maybe he's helping me, or somebody's up there helping me.
It bodes well. It bodes well for the future of this film. So great. Thank you so much for dropping by. It's always lovely to talk to you.
Thanks for having me and letting me pitch this and just getting the word out. I really appreciate it. You're so supportive. You're always so supportive.
It's always a pleasure, and I'm happy to help. And, let us know how things go, and we'll watch the film when it comes out.
Oh, yeah. It'll be everywhere. Oh, don't worry. I will put it everywhere.
All right. So here's a note to my listeners to go support that fundraiser because it's for an important movie. So do that, please. And thank you so much, Rakefet.
Thank you.
And now, say goodbye, Rakefet.
Goodbye, Rakefet. Oh, goodbye.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.